Well, we're back for part two of my problem shelf. This may be the more difficult of the two, not because there are more plants, but just because the plants are providing a little bit more of a challenge. I don't think this one's going to be as long as the last one, but who knows, we'll see how that plays out. Anyway, join me with the tasty beverage of your choice close to hand while we take a look at my problem shelf, part two. And before we get underway, a thank you to all the people who took the time to respond to last week's question about what Hoya you just can't stand. Poor Hoya Carey, it just got beat up. I know that some people are really fond of it and it's their favorite, and there's probably even some sentimental reasons for it, but oh boy, people jumped on that bandwagon. And Hoya carnosa compacta and Curtisi, even linearis and multiflora got their fair share of abuse. So yeah, if you love Hoya Carey and it's one of your favorite, you can still be our friends. So thank you to all of you who took the time to respond. And a quick update on the seeds. They're still doing well. I'll try and remember to take a picture. Maybe you can see that in there, to put on the screen over here. And my lithops seeds have germinated, at least some of them. You probably won't be able to see that in there, but I'll put some pictures of these too, because I'm just surprised as all get out. This is Lithops fulviceps lacunosa, and yeah, they're doing far better than I expected. I think out of the 7 packs of seeds of lithops so far, 4 of them have sprouted. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that too, because that whole group, Memsebs, have become a new kind of favorite for me. So yeah, that's where we are. And one more little update, a new orchid. This is Phalaenopsis Jinho's Pink Girl, bloomed for the first time, and I think that's just neat. It's tiny. I mean, that's my thumb next to it, so it's not terribly big. The leaves are really pretty. I saw this one for the first time on Sober Plant Guy's channel, and thanks, Dave. This is you didn't recommend it, but I got the idea from you, so thanks. So the bottom shelf of my problem shelf ended up being something of a catch-all. I had one plant that got huge early on. I mean, the leaves are big, so that was space I had. And a couple others have turned into vining monsters, and you'll see. And none of that's working for any of them. So after I took all the plants off and vacuumed up an inordinate amount of spent blossoms, I readjusted the lights on that. I've taken it down from 48 watts to 24 watts, which seems to be working better on the top shelf. Some of the plants that were on the bottom shelf were getting way too sun-stressed for my taste, and we had a discussion about that in the comments. Yeah, sun-stressing is a natural thing that plants do, but they do it to protect themselves, and I don't like it. There's very few Hoya that I think look better for sun stress. I love the green leaves. I love the variegation. Don't love the red. It just doesn't work for me. And this is personal taste. You raise your Hoyas as you see fit. And what appeals to you, I'm in it for the green. That's just, to me, that's just beautiful. It's calming and relaxing and everything else. So yeah, not a sun-stressed guy. But as usual, the kids are all lined up in the hall waiting to come in and entertain you. So let's get this underway with the first one. And the first one from that shelf is my Hoya insularis. Now, Hoya insularis is native to the island of Borneo, which means the Kingdom of Brunei, and Sabah and Sarawak in Malaysia, and Kalimantan in Indonesia. And it was first published in 2020 in Wilde Neue Mitteilungen aus dem Botanischen Garten und Museum Berlin-Dahlem by Michaela Roda and Sri Rahayu. It was originally published in 1908 by Friedrich Richard Rudolf Schlechter as Anthropanthus borneensis in his Botanische Jahrbucher and all the rest. But it was determined to be a Hoya and not an Anthropanthus. This plant I love. I think that's just really, really pretty. It grew like crazy as soon as it arrived. Whoops, it's grabbing onto everything else. Let's put that over there. It grew like crazy. It did really, really well. And then it grew way too long. And it got involved with everything. And it just, yeah, it's, this trailing thing is not working for me in this insularis. So after this video, sometime in the next few days, I'm going to send this up. It's not good for it to be doing that. What it has run into is it's taken off and got in front of the heating duct, so the ends of the vines have just dried out super quick. It's not a good setup for this plant. So I think I'm going to do some cleanup. Ooh, there's a peduncle. You probably won't be able to see that, but I do have pictures of the blooms the first time it bloomed, so I'll put them, or the second time it bloomed. I'll put them over here. This is just really pretty. I love those leaves. The other problem I was having with it where it was on that shelf is it was getting sun-stressed, severely sun-stressed. And I did not like the look of it. I love these leaves as they are. I don't think, and they went a mahogany color, I don't think it made it any more handsome. So yeah, we're going to send this one up. It may not be thrilled about that, but I think it's going to be better for the plant in the long run. That'll also mean that it gets something of a larger pot, which is going to benefit everybody. So yeah, this one I got from Rare Foliage Plant Company on Etsy, and this is Hoya insularis. Next up, we have another lacunosa, and this is Hoya lacunosa Amarillo, or Amarillo. Now, lacunosa is native to Malaysia, meaning the provinces of Sabah, Sarawak, and Malaya, from Indonesia, Kalimantan, Java, and Sumatra. It's native to the Philippines, to Thailand, and perhaps even Laos, because there is a lacunosa Laos, as we saw last week, although that doesn't show up in the references at Q. So, yeah. Was probably originally collected in the Malay Peninsula because there's a note on the herbarium sheet that says Malaya. So that would make sense. And it was first published in 1826, 1827 in the Bijdragen tot de Flora van Nederlandisch-Indie by Carl Ludwig van Bloom. This is one of the reasons I had to turn down the lights, because this plant has just, it's done so well for me. But as you can see, it's getting way too much light. Way too much light. And this thing is loaded with peduncles. I mean, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 25 or 30 peduncles on this, and it blooms regularly. But the thing that makes Amarillo neat is the variegation, the weird variegation when the leaves first come in. And the amount of light it was getting was just bleaching out all that stuff. It normally should have, I don't know if I can do this, 2 hands, and it should normally have variegation that makes you wonder if the plant's okay. That was when I first ordered it. I thought, how am I going to know if it's not doing well? Because if it looks like that anyway. And a lot of people don't like Amarillo for that reason. But it grew on me. Yeah, it's done very, very well. This is a robust little grower and bloomer. And I think if I can, well, I already have lowered the light, it's going to be happier. And I think this one, it was on the back wall. It was initially at 72 watts of light, which did well for some plants when they were shorter. But as they grew and got closer to the light, don't go into the light, it was not a good thing for them. So I've now got that down to 24 watts. I think I'm going to hang this one on one of the 2 sides. I think that's going to work better. That'll open up the center of the shelf for me a bit. And I have another one for the other side, and you'll see that soon. But I really like this plant. I like the whole kind of mottled variegation. Let's see if I found some leaves that are not too bleached out. If everybody behaves. Come on, all right. I don't want to clean anything up. I don't know how well that's going to focus. I'll try and put some close-ups. But this has been a phenomenal grower for me. Very happy with it. It's a good, hardy lacunosa, blooms a lot. All the good lacunosa stuff. This one does it, and it's grown into quite a little beast. This came from Koi Moon Plant Co. on Etsy, and this is Hoya lacunosa Amarillo. And the next one up is the chief cause of the problems on that shelf. That's not quite fair, but you'll see. This is my Hoya sulawesiana. Now, sulawesiana is native to the island of Sulawesi in Indonesia, as one might expect. And it was first published in 2001 in Blumea, Tijdschrift voor de Systematiek en Geografie der Planten, a journal of plant taxonomy and plant geography by David Klein and Ruard van Donkelaar. No, that's not right. I read the wrong stuff. It was originally published in 2020 in Taiwania by Sri Rahayu and Michaela Rhoda, and was originally collected by Andarias Sambo Karaing. I loved this plant the first time I saw it. I thought those leaves, and I have to be careful with this because I thought those leaves were just amazing, were so cool, so neat, wonderful texture and beautiful green. I mean, look at that. That's just nifty, right? Yeah, and I said nifty because I'm old and I can do as I please. And this one has peduncles, which are something new. Hopefully you can see them in there. If not, there'll be some photos, of course. And I think this plant is so beautiful. I just love the look of it. It took it a while to settle in. I don't remember what I originally had it in, but at some point I moved it to self-watering and pond. And so it took it another little bit of time to settle in. And then it just started growing. So we had a good growth spurt, and then it stopped for a little bit, and then we had a good growth spurt, and it stopped for a bit. But now I've got these two vines. I have to hold the plant, not tip it over. These two vines, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but that's probably, that could easily be a meter long, 39.37 inches. This is probably at least almost that much itself. So I need to, yeah, you can sit in here with me. I need to affix these to the trellis a bit more so that they don't get beaten up in my comings and goings by that shelf. And I want this to bloom. I really do. It hasn't bloomed for me yet. So seeing that peduncle down there, there's only 5 blossoms on it, but I am not complaining. What I didn't like was the sun stressing. It was starting to sun stress, and it doesn't look good when it does that. And I'm just not happy about it. And so the higher light might have been what helped get it to bloom, but I just don't like that color on this plant. And I've seen pictures of really sun-stressed sulawesianas, and, you do you, but that's not me. So, yeah, this one's done okay. It changed the focus point on the camera. I hate when it does that. This one's done okay for me. It grows really well when it gets exactly what it wants. And I think it's going to be, as it continues, I think when I get this done and these are secured, because these leaves are really heavy, the leaves are quite thick. Where's my handy dandy ruler? So this is easily 6.5 or 65 centimeters. The longer leaves, they're up in the plastic category. These leaves do not bend. Rigid plastic in that category. I think it's going to be really pretty once I can get this kind of trained a little bit better. And we'll see where we go from there. I would put this on the fairly easy, medium scale. So this is kind of cool. This came from GRV Greenland Shop on Etsy, and this is Hoya sulawesiana. And this next one is another one of the reasons I have to deal with this problem shelf, or one of the reasons that it's become a problem shelf. And this is Hoya brevialata. When this one arrived, let's do the background stuff first. This one is native to Sulawesi, which is why I confused it with the earlier one. And this one was published in 2001 in Bloemea Tijdschrift voor de Systematiek en Geografie der Planten by David Klein and Ruard van Donkelaar. I had never heard of this plant when it showed up. I think it came as a free thank you cutting with my thomsonii, which is one of my first exotic plants. And this one has, there's a whole host of issues with this. It's getting way too much light. It should not be that pale color. And it has grown to the point where the amount of moisture that the reservoir can hold will not support a plant this size. You know, it'll go through the water in a couple of days, and I can't keep up with that. That one long vine is easily 7 feet long. And it had snaked up from where this plant hung, and it had attached itself to the wall behind the shelf and grown up almost 5 feet behind other stuff, which is why I didn't even see it until I tried to take it down. This one, I'm going to cut this one back. I'll try and root parts of that long vine, simply to see how that goes, to make sure I hang on to this and see if we can get some normal color back to this one. I'm also going to move it. It was on the back wall, again, under a whole lot of light, which is why it's so pale. And I'm going to move it to the side where it'll still get good light, but not quite as much. And we'll see if that helps it out. This one blooms. I should have pictures of the blooms for you over here. I'll show you how much it's grown since it first arrived, or from near when it first arrived. When I took this free cutting out, as I said, I'd never heard of it. I thought it was really boring. I didn't particularly like it. I wanted Hoyas with, well, I had ordered a thomsonii, and this came along with it. So, you know, I was very much like, okay, fine, I'll grow it. But then it grew and it grew and it grew. So we're going to try and nurse this puppy back to health. Pay a little bit more of attention because it's putting out new growth. So we're going to fix the issues with this and find it a better home and see what we can make out of this. This is Hoya brevialata, and it goes so far back I don't even remember who sent it to me. And this next little kiddo was like a 2 or 3 leaf wonder for a really long time. And then I gave it more light and moved it to self-watering. And, oh, I love this plant. This one's really cool. This is Hoya thomsonii. Now, Hoya thomsonii is native to the Assam region of India and to Tibet. And it was first published in 1883 in the Flora of British India by Joseph Dalton Hooker. And the comment on the herbarium sheet says Reg Himal, so Himalayan region, I'm guessing. This is such a cool little plant. It's just very pretty. This one blooms a lot now. But the thing about it is the leaves are really fuzzy. The leaves are fuzzy on the top, they're fuzzy on the bottom. Even through that splash, the leaves are fuzzy. So the combination of fuzzy leaves and splash, and I should have pictures of the blooms over here, really, really pretty blooms. Yeah, once this guy started going, I'm all in. I'm all in on thomsonii. If I remember, the blooms on this one are pink. I think there's another color, thomsonii. But I'm not sure about that. So, yeah, not positive. For some reason, that bit of triviata sticks in my brain. This does really well once it's settled, once it's established. The leaves are just, I mean, how can you not think that's kind of cool? I mean, that's really, really pretty. And then people look and they touch the leaves and, oh, it's fuzzy. It does feel like velvet. Very cool. This one came from Plants Wake You Up, and this is Hoya thomsonii. And next up is my Hoya caudata Sumatra. You okay there? And Hoya caudata is native to South Thailand, Malaya, Sabah, and Sarawak in Malaysia, Singapore, and Sumatra in Indonesia, but not Kalimantan. And it was probably originally found in peninsular Malaysia, since there was a note on the herbarium sheet that says Malay. It was first published in 1883 by our friend Joseph Dalton Hooker in the Flora of British India. And the name comes from caudatus in Latin, meaning tailed. And when I show you pictures of the blooms, which I should have, you'll understand where the tails come from. This was my first kind of quasi-exotic Hoya, and I bought it because I saw pictures of leaves like that. And they just, I thought, were beautiful. A little funky, a little different, not like the rest of the Hoyas I had, so it's like, let's try something new. This has done really well. The thing it took me a while to learn is that because the leaves are thin and slightly pubescent on the bottom, and the stems tend to be woody, this plant doesn't hold much water on its own. So it does best when it has an access to a constant supply of moisture. So I had it in bark and sphagnum in a cover pot, and it did okay, but once it got to a certain point of growth, it was just pulling up lots and lots of water. So I decided to move it to a larger self-watering pot, and in a bark and sphagnum. It was in bark and sphagnum. It was really well settled in that. So I just surrounded it with my cocoa husk chunk and tree fern and sphagnum and pumice mixture. And let's see how it's doing. It's okay. Well, it hasn't. I don't have any roots coming through the bottom yet, but that's okay. It's only been maybe a month. I'm trying to avoid having, like stuff like that happen because they just couldn't get enough moisture. So that was the whole reason for the move. This one lives in front of that lower shelf. So while the light is aimed back into the shelf, this stands in the front fallout. And it seems to be liking that. There's a bit of new growth up here, so that's cool. So maybe the move to this new setup wasn't too traumatic. This might be able to actually move onto that shelf. I thought it was going to go. I had a couple thoughts about where it was originally going to go, but then it wasn't going to fit there, and so but maybe with the rearrangement on this shelf, it can go next to Hoya sulawesiana. This is really cool. This one came from the Planted Veteran on Etsy, and this is Hoya caudata Sumatra. Next up, we have Hoya caudata flagellata. Now, when I bought this plant, it was sold as Hoya flagellata and has since been synonymized into caudata. But flagellata comes from those same countries. What was the list I read you? Where is it? Let's find my notes. South Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and it was first published. I've got notes all over the place here for you. In 1940, by William Carr in Hooker's Icones Plantarum, or Figures with Brief Descriptive Characters and Remarks of New or Rare Plants. Now, that was a series of publications. It was started in 1837, but this was published in the last edition in the 1940 edition, by William Jackson Hooker, who is the father of Joseph Dalton Hooker. Yeah. If you're intrigued by caudata, I don't know if I can get that. Yeah. If you like the idea of it and how it looks, this is a good one. This one grew from the get-go. There was no settling in, there was no waiting period. This one just took off. The leaves are, I would say, mildly splashy. They still have that same texture as the caudata Sumatra. They are, yeah, they're rigid. Same kind of situation. The vines are very thin, or the leaves are very thin and rigid. The vines are rather woody. So this plant itself does not hold a lot of moisture. It's not a terribly succulent plant, and we've had that discussion. Whoops, a whole bunch of spent blossoms. So it needs a regular supply of moisture, and if you give it that, it will, and it needs a regular supply of moisture now. It will do well for you. As I said, this one grows when I take care of it. It grows rampantly. I don't use that word often. It blooms regularly. This one blooms more frequently than caudata and is, for me, a better grower than caudata. So yeah, if you're looking for something in that family, then I would suggest Hoya caudata flagellata. This one came from Gabriella Plants, and again, it's now a caudata. And the next up, another resident of that bottom shelf. This is Hoya species SR 2007-13 and is native to Thailand. It's also known as species Loei province. And it was first published by Sarissa Somadi. This came as a freebie cutting, probably from Plants Wake You Up. But we've had our ups and downs. It hasn't been difficult. It took me a while to figure out just what it wanted. The leaves are very pretty. They're very neat. There's some splash. There's some paler veins. Isn't she that rock star the young people listen to? Paler veins? Anyway, it's done well. I think it's getting a little too much light because it's starting to sun stress on the top. Little spots of sun stress. So we're not going to have that. Yeah, but we fixed that. It's lower light level on that shelf now, so all should be good with this. The stems are woody. The vines are woody. The leaves are firm. They're not quite rigid. So they do hold some moisture, but not a lot. So this plant does want access to regular moisture. The internodal spacing is, yeah, it's up there. I'm looking at, there's easily a foot. I don't know, what is 12 inches equal? 12 inches is 35 centimeters between leaf nodes. So yeah, I just know that going in. It has not bloomed for me yet. I have seen pictures of the blooms and they are pretty, but that hasn't happened. And I'm not gonna toss this plant because it hasn't bloomed. I'm gonna figure out what I can do to help it bloom. Yeah, this was I think this was a thank you cutting from Plants Wake You Up, and this is Hoya species SR 2007-13 Loei Province. Next up is Hoya elliptica. And we have had our struggles, this plant and I. It did okay, and then it didn't, and then it did okay, and then it didn't. And we're just coming out of a period of not doing okay, but it has sent out this new vine, so fingers crossed. Hoya elliptica is native to Brunei, in Indonesia, Sumatra, and Kalimantan, in Malaysia, Malaya, Sarawak, and Sabah, and Thailand. It was first published in 1883 in the Flora of British India by Joseph Dalton Hooker, and Hooker named it after the leaf shape, which is elliptical. Makes sense to me. These leaves are absolutely beautiful. I thought it had been playing with someone who might have had flat mites, so I gave it a big dose because I don't want to lose this plant. Let's see if I can do this without spilling it. Beautiful, beautiful leaves. It can tolerate and perhaps prefers slightly less light than you might think. Again, it wants regular access to moisture, and it just kind of wants to be left alone. So I try not to muck with it at all. Yeah, I think the lower light is going to be a better situation for that plant. It's just going to be happier there. And we'll give it another sulfur treatment in another week or two and see if we can make this plant happy once again. Not the easiest Hoya, but not the most difficult. And, those leaves are definitely worth trying for. So, yeah. This one came from the Planted Veteran on Etsy, and this is Hoya elliptica. And with everybody retrellised and rearranged and relit, the end result looks like this. And a very special thank you to Kathy, who bought me some coffees, and to Amber, who sent us super thanks. Your support is really important to my channel. It keeps me in Hoyas and tech and makes doing all this just a little bit easier on me. So thank you both very much. Your generosity and kindness is much appreciated. And the question for the comments this week is a direct spin-off of last week's. Sun stress, yes or no? I thought talking about Hoya, not liking Hoya Carey was going to get people cranked, but it didn't. Everybody kind of went, we don't like it either. But sun stress tends to be a fairly divisive issue from what I've seen and heard. So yeah, express your opinion, take the chance, offend people. You won't offend me. I don't, however you care to grow your plants is up to you. But sun stress, yes or no? And I want to thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of time with me this week's end. Please remember to click that thumbs up like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. It's how you can help my channel grow. A lot of the products you've seen me use are available through my Amazon storefront, and there's a link to that in the description below. I receive a small commission on the sales, but it doesn't change your price at all. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the link below in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page, or you can click on the Super Thanks button, the thanks button down here beneath. As usual, I'm going to post links to videos over here. Maybe, no, over here. Over here. I think they're over here. I need Lisa to remind me again. I think they're over here. And enjoy the rest of your week's end.